Hello, I'm really glad you're here tonight. This hour is different from the rest of the day. It doesn't ask you to decide anything. It doesn't ask you to perform or explain or keep up. It simply invites you to lie still and let your thoughts move at their own pace. As the years pass, nighttime becomes a kind of companion, a place where the mind is free to wander without interruption, where memories return, not urgently, but patiently, where understanding settles in quietly without needing words. Later in life, the mind doesn't race the way it once did. It reflects, it revisits, it connects dots that once seemed unrelated, and it does this most honestly when the lights are off and the world has gone silent. This space is for those thoughts, the ones that don't surface during the day, the ones that arrive only when you're alone with yourself, resting, remembering, and gently making sense of a long, lived-in life. So take a slow breath. Let your body soften into the bed and allow this night to meet you where you are. And now, before we begin, if this kind of honest, gentle reflection speaks to you, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. And down in the comments, tell me where you're listening from and what time it is where you are right now. There's something comforting about knowing we're all here together, scattered across time zones, but united in these late hours when the world finally grows still. So settle in, adjust your pillows, find a comfortable position, and know that for the next hour you're not alone in whatever wisdom you're carrying, whatever understanding you've earned, whatever truths rise to the surface when the lights go out. Let's begin. You are lying still right now, and the night has come fully into the room. Not the noisy kind of night, not the restless kind. This is the deep, settled kind of darkness that arrives only after everything else has finished its business for the day. The kind of darkness that feels earned, the kind that belongs specifically to people who have lived long enough to stop being afraid of it. You've reached that place. The golden years, they call it. And lying here, in the quiet dark, you understand something about that phrase that younger people simply cannot. Gold isn't bright and loud. Gold is warm. Gold is deep. Gold is the color of late afternoon light that makes everything it touches look more true than it did at noon. That is what your life has become. Not louder, not faster, but more true. Your body is settled now, your breath is slow, and somewhere outside, if you listen, the world is giving off its final sounds before silence takes over completely. A distant door, a dog somewhere far away, wind moving through whatever trees grow near your window, and then nothing, just the hush, just the dark, just you. Let yourself be here completely. You are resting now, but your mind is doing what it always does in this hour. It is traveling, not anxiously, not urgently, just moving, the way water moves in a slow river, touching everything along its banks without rushing past any of it. Tonight, your mind is traveling to a place you may have visited only in imagination, or perhaps it is a place that lives inside you, built from stories you've heard, from music you've felt in your chest without understanding the words, from images that stayed with you long after you looked away. A village in the Andean highlands. Let it come into focus slowly. There is no hurry. You are imagining a place so high in the mountains that the stars seem closer than they do anywhere else on Earth. A village made of stone and earth and patience. Houses that have stood for generations, their walls thick enough to hold warmth even when the mountain air turns cold and clear and sharp as glass. Streets that are not really streets at all, but paths worn smooth by hundreds of years of feet going back and forth between the same places, the market, the well, the church with its painted wooden doors, the hillside where the animals graze in the mornings. This village has a name, but tonight the name doesn't matter. What matters is the feeling of it, the particular quality of life that exists at that altitude, in that culture, in that ancient harmony between people and land and time. You settle into this place the way you settle into sleep itself, gradually, willingly, with a kind of trust that only comes from having lived long enough to know that letting go is not the same as losing. Picture the evening falling over the village. The sun sets differently at high altitude. It drops behind the mountain ridges rather than the horizon, and when it goes quickly, pulling its warmth with it like someone gathering a shawl. One moment, the stone walls are amber and gold. The next, they are gray and cool, holding the memory of warmth without the warmth itself. The people of the village have known this their entire lives. They don't resist it. They don't mourn the going of the light. They move inside. They light what needs to be lit. They gather around what warmth they've prepared. They do what people do in the Andean highlands when the cold comes down from the peaks and the night settles over the valley like a held breath. They sit together. They eat slowly. They speak in low voices. They exist in the particular way that ancient communities have always existed when the day is done and the night demands rest. You are watching all of this, and something in it feels deeply familiar, not because you've been there, but because you've lived long enough to recognize the shape of it, the winding down, the gathering in, the quiet acknowledgement that another day has been spent, and there is nothing left to do but let the darkness come without fighting it. You recognize this because it is your life now too. In different geography, in different language, in different walls and different light, but the same shape. The same slow settling, the same understanding that night is not an interruption of life, but a part of it, an essential part. The part where everything that was taken in during the day is processed, held, integrated into the ongoing story of who you are. Think about the elders of this highland village. They are the ones who have lived the longest in this place, who have watched the most sunsets, who have made peace with the most winters, who have learned through repetition and loss and love that the mountain doesn't ask for your opinion about the weather, it simply presents it. And what you do with that weather, how you dress for it, how you shelter from it, how you find warmth within it, that is entirely up to you. The elders understand something that the young people in the village are still learning. They understand that age is not a diminishment, it is an accumulation. It is the difference between a path that has just been opened and a path that has been walked thousands of times until every stone is known, every rise and dip is familiar, every view is understood not just as scenery, but as a living chapter of a very long story. You are an elder in your own life. You understand this now, lying here in the quiet dark. You have become the person you once looked at and wondered about. The person who sat in the corner at family gatherings and seemed to know something nobody was saying out loud. The person who didn't need to explain themselves anymore because they had long since finished the work of figuring out who they were. This didn't happen overnight. It happened over decades, over thousands of nights exactly like this one. Lying in bed, in the dark, with the thoughts moving slowly, and the body tired, and the life behind you larger than the life ahead. This is the golden hour of a golden year, and you are fully in it. Let your mind rest on one particular image from that highland village. An old woman sitting at the doorway of her stone house at the end of the day. She's not doing anything, not in the way the world usually counts doing. Her hands are resting in her lap. Her eyes are looking at the mountain. She has looked at that mountain her entire life. She looked at it as a child when it seemed impossibly large and full of mystery. She looked at it as a young woman when she was too busy to really see it. She looked at it as a mother, as a grandmother, through joy and grief and everything in between. And now she looks at it at the end of the day, and she sees all of those versions of herself reflected in its slopes. She sees the girl, the young woman, the mother, the grandmother, the old woman she has become. The mountain hasn't changed, not in any way she can perceive, but she has. And knowing that both things are true, that she has been utterly transformed and the mountain has remained, gives her a feeling that isn't sadness and isn't happiness, but something older and quieter than either of those. You know this feeling. You've had it looking at an old house, a familiar tree, a stretch of road you've driven 1,000 times, the feeling that you are the one who has changed while the world stood still. The feeling that all your versions still exist somewhere, layered over each other like transparencies, each one present even when invisible. That old woman at the doorway is you, not literally, but in the feeling. in the understanding that this sitting and this looking and this quiet acknowledgement of having arrived at the end of another day is not a small thing. It is, perhaps, one of the most profound things a human being can do. The night in the highlands is extraordinary. At that altitude, there is less atmosphere between you and the universe. The stars don't just appear, they arrive. They fill the sky not as pinpoints, but as presences. The Milky Way is not a suggestion, but a river, broad and luminous, and so thick with stars that the darkness between them seems incidental. The people who have lived under this sky their whole lives know every constellation. They know the stories attached to each cluster of stars, stories that were old before anyone now living was born. Stories about llamas and condors and the first people and the mountains that protect them and the rivers that give them life. These stories were passed down, not in books, but in mouths, in the quiet voice of a grandparent in the dark. In the particular way a child listens when the day is over and the night sky is enormous and the stories feel true in a way that nothing else quite manages. You have your own stories. They were given to you in rooms like this one, in the dark, in voices you can still hear if you let yourself go quiet enough. Your grandparents' voices, your parents' voices, the voices of teachers and neighbors and aunts and uncles and friends who've been gone for years but haven't left you completely. They're here tonight, in the room, in the silence, not as ghosts, as echoes, as the residue that love leaves behind even after the person is gone. You carry them the way the Highland villager carries the story of the stars, not consciously, not always, but always available when the night is quiet enough to hear. You've been lying here for some time now, and your body has done something it always does eventually, even when your mind resists. It has softened. The places that hold tension throughout the day, your shoulders, your jaw, the muscles along your spine, they have released incrementally, so gradually you barely noticed, but they have released. This is what your body has learned after all these years: how to let go in the dark, how to trust the night, how to stop bracing against things that aren't happening right now, in this moment, under these covers, in this room. Your body is wise, much wiser than you sometimes give it credit for. It has carried you through everything, every loss, every surgery, every early morning and late night, every grief that felt unsurvivable, and every joy that felt too large for your chest. Your body has been with you for all of it, doing its extraordinary ordinary work of keeping you alive and moving and present in the world. And now it is doing the most necessary work of all. It is resting. It is restoring itself in the way it has always known how to do, in the dark, in the quiet, under whatever covers you've pulled up against the night. Honor this. Honor your body tonight. Not for what it looks like or what it can do or what it could do once that it can't do now. Honor it simply for the fact of it, for the miracle of its continuation, for the years it has carried you, for the nights it has healed you without you even knowing. Return to the village for a moment. In the Andean highlands, there is a concept that weaves through the culture like a thread through fabric. The idea that nothing exists in isolation, that the human being is not separate from the land, the sky, the community, the ancestors, the animals, the mountains, the rivers. That all of it is one living system, and each person is a node in that system, connected to everything that came before and everything that will come after. They have words for this, ways of describing the relationship between self and world that English doesn't quite capture, but you can feel it, even without the words. It is the feeling you get when you realize that your life did not begin with your birth and will not end with your death, that you are part of something much longer than one lifetime, that you carry within you the lives of everyone who loved you, everyone who shaped you, everyone whose hands touched yours and whose words entered your ears and whose presence changed something in you permanently. You are not just one person lying in one bed in one night. You are the accumulation of everyone who made you, their courage and their failures, their love and their limitations, their stories and their silences, all of it present in you, all of it lying here in the dark, all of it breathing with you in the quiet of this room. This is not a heavy thought. Let it not feel heavy. Let it feel like what it actually is. Company. The best kind of company. The kind that asks nothing of you but your continued existence. The kind that stays through every night without needing to be invited. There is a particular silence in the Andean highlands after midnight. It is not the silence of emptiness. It is the silence of fullness, of a world that has said everything it needed to say in the daylight hours and is now content to simply be, without commentary, without agenda, without any need for the noise that human beings generate when they are unsure of themselves. The mountains are there in that silence. They don't need the dark to tell them they exist. They have been there longer than the concept of night itself. They will be there long after the last person who knows their names has gone. They exist in a dimension of time that makes a human life seem like a single breath in a very long sentence. And yet they hold that single breath with complete seriousness. They don't diminish you by their scale. They honor you, the way old things honor the new, the way a river honors every new stone that falls into it, the way the night sky honors every person who has ever lain on their back and looked up at it with wonder. You are being held right now, not by hands, by something larger than hands, by the night itself, by the accumulated weight of all the nights that have come before this one, by the understanding that rest is not a break from life, but the deepest form of it. Let yourself be held. Stop holding yourself up for just these hours. You've done enough holding up. You've carried enough. For tonight, in this dark, in this quiet, you are allowed to be carried. The first section of this night is drawing to a close, but the night itself is still full and deep and unhurried. You've been here before, not in this exact moment, but in this feeling. The feeling of lying in the dark and letting your life move through you instead of trying to move through it. The feeling of being old enough to know that peace is not the absence of memory, but the ability to sit with memory without being destroyed by it. You've earned every wrinkle, every gray hair, every ache that greets you in the morning, and every slower step that used to be a stride. You've earned the wisdom that lives in your silences, the understanding that lives behind your eyes, the patience you once thought you'd never find. You are in your golden years now, and the quiet dark is yours. The Andean mountain holds you in its ancient understanding. The stars above that highland village and the stars above your window are the same stars. They don't distinguish between hemispheres or ages or lives. They simply shine quietly and without ego, offering light that takes years to arrive, light that was already traveling toward you long before you thought to look up. You are part of all of it, and all of it is here with you tonight. Rest now. Breathe slowly. Let the first half of this night hold you gently while you sink a little deeper into the warmth, into the quiet, into the beautiful and ordinary miracle of being alive in the dark. The second part of this night will come. But for now, simply be here. Simply be. You are still here. The night hasn't moved on without you. It has waited the way good things wait. Without impatience, without condition, without any need for you to hurry toward it. It is simply here, the same dark, the same quiet, the same deep and settled stillness that met you when you first lay down tonight. And you are deeper in it now, deeper in the warmth, deeper in the ease. Your body has done its work of releasing, and your mind has done its work of remembering, and now both of them are ready for something slower, something gentler, something that asks even less of you than memory asks. Just presence, just breath, just the soft and continuous fact of being alive in this room, in this night, in this life that has brought you, through everything it has brought you through, to exactly this moment. Stay here. There is nowhere else to be. Let the Highland village come back to you now, not as a destination, as a companion. It is deep night there too. The stone houses are dark from the outside, but inside each one there is a particular quality of warmth that only exists in places where warmth has been carefully tended for generations. Not the warmth of central heating or modern convenience, the warmth of something earned. something fed, something that required attention and intention and the willingness to prepare before the cold arrived rather than after. The families are asleep now. The grandmother in her corner, under the blankets she has slept under for decades, blankets that carry the smell of her life, of the cooking and the animals and the earth and the particular sweetness of a human being who has lived fully in one place for a very long time. The children in their beds, breathing the slow breath of the deeply, innocently asleep. The parents in between, tired in the honest way that comes from physical work and real responsibility, already drifting before their eyes fully closed. The village breathes as one thing in the night, slowly, together, without knowing it is doing this, but doing it nonetheless. All those separate lungs, all those separate dreams, all those separate lives, moving in and out of consciousness in the same high thin air, under the same enormous sky, held by the same ancient mountains. You are breathing with them tonight, across whatever distance separates your bed from those stone floors and woven blankets and clay walls. You are part of the same rhythm, the same deep planetary exhale that happens every night when the human world finally, collectively, lies down. Feel that, the belonging of it, the simple, extraordinary belonging of being one breathing creature among all the other breathing creatures who are doing exactly this right now in every corner of the world. You have known many nights in your life. You know this without counting them. You know it the way you know the weight of a particular kind of tiredness, or the smell of a particular season, or the feeling in your chest when a song comes on that belongs to a year you haven't visited in decades. You know it in your bones, which have absorbed the darkness of thousands of nights the way wood absorbs weather. Slowly, permanently, without making a fuss about it. Think about the nights that changed you. Not the dramatic ones necessarily, not the ones with sirens or phone calls or the particular silence after terrible news. Those nights changed you too, and they matter, and they live in you. But think also about the quieter nights, the ones that shifted something in you so slowly and so gently that you didn't even notice the shift until years later, when you looked back and realized you were different than you'd been before. The night you lay awake after a conversation that rearranged something in your understanding. The night you couldn't sleep because a decision was asking to be made and your body wouldn't rest until you'd made it. The night you lay in the dark beside someone you loved and felt with sudden and complete certainty that this was where you were supposed to be. Not performing, not striving, just lying in the dark beside a warm and breathing person and knowing, simply knowing, that life had given you something real. Those quiet nights did more work on you than you knew. They were the nights when your understanding deepened, when your compassion expanded, when the harder edges of your personality rounded themselves down into something more livable, more forgiving, more capable of holding other people's complexity without needing to fix it or judge it or make it something other than what it was. The nights made you gentle, the long accumulation of them. The thousands of times you lay down with whatever you were carrying and woke up the next morning somehow more able to carry it. You didn't give yourself credit for this. You probably still don't. But the nights know. They witnessed the work you did in the dark, the invisible labor of becoming, and they are holding that knowledge for you tonight. In the Andean highlands, the elders are the keepers of something very specific. They are the keepers of continuity, of the thread that connects what was to what is to what will be. They remember the way the river ran before the rains changed its course. They remember the names of people whose grandchildren are now grandparents themselves. They remember songs that would have been lost if they hadn't held on to them, stories that would have dissolved into silence if they hadn't kept speaking them into the ears of the young. This is not a small thing. This is, in fact, one of the most important things a human community can have, the living memory, the person who was there, the voice that can say, I remember when this place was different, I remember when we did it this way, I remember the winter that everyone else has forgotten. You are this person in your own world. You may not think of yourself this way. You may feel, as many people do in their later years, that your stories belong to a time no one else cares about, that the world has moved on to faster things and your memories are antiques that nobody wants in their modern house. But that is not true. It has never been true. The young people who seem distracted and hurried, they are hungry for exactly what you carry. They simply don't always know how to ask for it. They haven't yet lived long enough to understand what they're missing. They haven't yet arrived at the night where they wish, with everything in them, that they could hear one more story from someone who is no longer here to tell it. You are that person for someone. Right now. Whether they've told you or not, whether they've found the words or not, you are the living link between where they came from and who they are. And the knowledge you hold, not the factual knowledge, but the felt knowledge, the hard-won understanding of how life actually works when you're inside it rather than looking at it from outside, that knowledge is irreplaceable. It lives in you. It is resting with you tonight. It will be there tomorrow when you wake, ready to be offered whenever someone is ready to receive it. Your breath is very slow now. Notice it without trying to change it. Notice how it has found its own rhythm, deeper and more spacious than the breath you walk around with during the day. The daytime breath is practical. It does its job and no more. But the night breath, the breath that comes when the body finally surrenders to rest, this breath is something different. It reaches further. It releases more completely. It is the breath of a body that has remembered, at last, that it is safe. You have earned this breath. Every year you've lived has contributed to this moment of being able to lie down and breathe this slowly. Every difficult thing you've moved through has added to your capacity for this kind of rest. Not despite the difficulty, because of it. The body that has survived hard winters rests more deeply in the warmth. The spirit that has known real loss appreciates real peace in a way that the untested spirit simply cannot. This is the gift hidden inside the hardest years. Not that they were good, because some of them weren't. Not that they were necessary, because you didn't need to suffer to deserve peace. But that they gave you a depth of contrast, a knowledge of what darkness actually feels like, which makes the quality of this particular quietness something your younger self would not have been able to fully receive. You can receive it now. You are receiving it right now, in this bed, in this body, in this breath that moves through you slowly and completely and without any need for your supervision. Just breathe. Let the night do the rest. The old man of the Highland village wakes briefly in the deep hours. He is past 80. His hands are the hands of someone who has worked the earth his entire life, knotted and dark and permanently shaped by the tools and tasks of a physical existence. His face holds the mountains in its lines. You can read decades in it the way you read rings in the wood of an ancient tree, each year present, each hardship recorded, each joy too, if you know how to look. He wakes and he lies still and he looks at the ceiling of his house, which he has looked at for 60 years of nights, and he doesn't feel afraid. He feels something that is harder to name than fear, a kind of full awareness, a consciousness of being alive that comes and goes, that visits him sometimes in these deep night hours when the world is at its quietest and the membrane between sleep and waking is thin. He is aware of his wife beside him, the sound of her breathing, which has been the background music of his nights for more than half a century. He is aware of his body, the weight of it, the particular way it settles into the mattress they have shared through so many seasons. He is aware of the cold outside the walls and the warmth inside them, and his own simple gratitude for the difference. He doesn't put any of this into words. He doesn't need to. He simply holds it, the way the mountains hold the village, without commentary, without analysis, without any need to explain or justify the experience of being alive in a very old body in a very quiet night. Then he closes his eyes, and he returns to sleep as easily as breathing. This is what the years teach, if you let them. Not the absence of awareness, but the ability to hold awareness without being agitated by it. The capacity to wake in the deep dark, to feel everything that is true about your life, and then to close your eyes and return to rest without needing to resolve anything first. You are learning this, or you have learned it, or you are in the middle of learning it, which is where most of us are with the things that matter most. There are things you know now that you couldn't have known at 30, at 40, even at 50. You know that most of what you spent your energy worrying about either never happened or happened and didn't destroy you the way you feared it would. You know that the people who seemed certain about everything were often the most lost. You know that kindness matters more than cleverness, that presence matters more than performance, that the quality of your attention to the people you love is worth more than anything you ever bought them or achieved on their behalf. You know that the body is not a machine that runs until it breaks. It is a living, breathing companion that does its best with what it's given and deserves gratitude rather than criticism. You know that the mind, even when it forgets names or loses threads, retains the things that matter most. The face of someone you love, the feeling of a particular afternoon, the sound of a voice that has been gone for years. You know that time is not linear in the way you were taught to think of it, that the past is not behind you but inside you, that every year you've lived is simultaneously complete and still present, like the layers of a landscape that holds all its geological history in its visible surface if you know how to read it. You know that silence is not empty, that aloneness is not the same as loneliness, that a life lived with genuine attention to the small things, the quality of morning light, the particular smell of a season, the feeling of a hand in yours, is a life that accumulates into something rich and deep and worthy of the word beautiful. You didn't know all of this at once. It came in pieces, in the quiet moments, in the nights especially, when the noise died down and the truth had room to surface. It has been surfacing for years, and tonight it is all here with you, all of this hard-won understanding lying in the bed beside you like the most faithful companion you've ever had. The Andean highlands have a sound that belongs only to the deepest hours of the night. It is not quite silence. It is the sound beneath silence, the hum that the earth makes when nothing is moving across its surface, when the animals are still and the people are asleep and the wind has dropped to nothing and all that remains is the planet itself, rotating slowly, breathing in its own geological way, present and enormous and utterly indifferent to anything as brief as a human lifetime, and yet somehow, inexplicably, tender toward it. You can hear this sound if you're willing to be still enough, if you've lived long enough to stop needing the world to be louder than it is, if you've reached the place where silence doesn't frighten you but feeds you. You are at that place. You arrived there gradually, without quite noticing the arrival, the way you arrive at the top of a long, gentle hill and realize only when you turn around that you've been climbing all along. The climb is behind you now. You are at the top, and the view from here is extraordinary, not because everything looks small from this height, though some things do, but because everything looks true, clear, undistorted by the urgency that bends perspective when you're in the middle of it. From here, you can see your life as it actually was, not as you feared it was in the anxious moments, not as you wished it was in the dissatisfied ones, but as it actually, truly, really was, full of ordinary grace, full of imperfect love, full of moments that didn't seem like gifts while they were happening, but were gifts nonetheless, full of a you that did the best it could with what it had and what it knew at every stage of the journey. That is enough. It has always been enough, and the quiet dark knows this even when you forget. You are very close to sleep now. You can feel it the way you feel weather changing. A certain heaviness in the eyelids that is not fatigue but permission. A softening at the edges of thought where the specific begins to blur into the general, where the personal begins to dissolve into something larger and less defined. The boundary between you and the night becoming more porous, more permeable, more willing to let the one flow into the other. This is the threshold. You've crossed it thousands of times. You'll cross it again in just a few moments. And every time you do, there is a small miracle involved, the miracle of a conscious mind agreeing to become temporarily unconscious, of a self that has worked so hard to remain distinct agreeing to dissolve for a few hours into the common darkness where all selves go when the day is done. The Highland grandmother crosses this threshold in her corner of her stone house under her woven blankets, her breath slowing to almost nothing, her ancient hands still at last. The old man with the mountain in his face crosses it too, returning from his brief wakefulness to the deep country of sleep, where perhaps he walks paths he knew as a young man, where perhaps the people he has loved and lost are simply there, the way they used to be, unremarkable in their presence, ordinary in the way that only the deeply missed can be in dreams. And you are crossing it now. All the memories you visited tonight are settling like dust after a long journey. They're not gone. They'll be there tomorrow, and the night after, and all the nights that follow. They are yours permanently. They are the architecture of you, the structure that holds everything else up, the foundation that was laid one experience at a time over all the years of your long and genuine life. But tonight, they can rest. Tonight, everything can rest. You are lying in the same darkness as every person who has ever lived. This is not a small thought, but let it be a comforting one. Every human being who has ever existed has lain down in the dark, has felt the weight of the day lift slightly as the body horizontal and the eyes closed and the world outside receded into something manageable. Every grandmother, every grandfather, every person who lived to be old in any century, in any country, in any language, has lain in the dark and breathed slowly and felt the night come in around them. The Highland elder who lived 400 years ago in that same stone village, before the stones were quite so worn, before the paths were quite so familiar, she lay in the dark too. She breathed the same thin mountain air. She listened to the same silence. She felt perhaps the same mix of tiredness and gratitude, and the strange, sweet melancholy of knowing that the life you're living is finite and precious and already passing. She is not so different from you. The circumstances of her life were entirely different, but the experience of lying in the dark at the end of a long life, feeling the weight of all that has been lived, the loves and the losses and the 10,000 ordinary days that make up the fabric of a real human existence, that experience belongs to everyone who has ever grown old. You belong to this community. The community of those who have lived long enough to understand what living actually costs and what it gives in return. It is the oldest community in the world, and it holds you tonight, the way it has always held its members, in the quiet dark, without fanfare, without ceremony, in the simple and profound solidarity of shared human experience. You are not alone in this bed. You are not alone in this night. You are accompanied by every person who has ever lain down and breathed slowly and let the darkness be something other than frightening. The golden years. You understand this phrase differently now than when you first heard it applied to people older than yourself. You thought it meant the reward years, the years after the work was done, the years of comfortable chairs and afternoon light and the slow enjoyment of what had been earned. And there is some of that. There is real gold in the ease of a morning that belongs entirely to you, in the afternoon that doesn't need to produce anything, in the evening that doesn't have to perform for anyone. But the deeper gold is this capacity you have developed over decades for being present in your own life without flinching from it. This ability to lie in the dark and let memory move through you without drowning in it. This willingness to hold the full complexity of what you've been and done and lost and loved without needing to resolve it into something simpler than it was. The gold is wisdom, not the bookish kind, the lived kind, the kind that lives in the body as much as the mind, the kind that knows when to speak and when to stay quiet, the kind that recognizes suffering in others because it has met suffering in itself, the kind that can sit with uncertainty without being destroyed by it because it has survived uncertainty before and knows from long experience that the not knowing is survivable. This is your gold. It cannot be lost. It cannot be taken from you. It cannot be diminished by age or illness or the physical changes of a body moving through its final chapters. It lives in you more permanently than anything else you own. It is the truest version of what the years have made of you, and it rests with you tonight, in the quiet dark, in the warmth of the bed you have made for yourself, in the life you have lived fully enough to carry this weight of hard-won, beautiful, irreplaceable understanding. The Highland village is fully asleep now. Every house is dark, every fire is down to embers that glow softly and cast no shadows, just warmth, just the quiet presence of something that was burning and is now resting, conserving itself for the morning when it will be needed again. The animals on the hillside are still. The dogs have stopped their occasional commentary on the night. Even the wind has found somewhere else to be. The mountains stand in the dark exactly as they stood in the light, unchanged, unmoved, present in the way that only the very old and very large can be present, not with effort, not with intention, simply by continuing to exist as they have always existed, long before the village and long after it, permanent in a way that nothing living can be but can nonetheless feel comforted by. You are held by those mountains tonight, even from this distance. You are held by the idea of them, by what they represent, the endurance of things, the way the world continues to exist beyond the span of any individual life, the way your absence, when it comes, will be absorbed into the ongoing largeness of everything without grief and without loss, because you will have already given everything you had to give, and it will have gone out into the world and become part of it permanently, woven into the lives you touched, the hands you held, the words you spoke that changed something in someone, whether you ever knew it or not. You have mattered. You matter now. You will have mattered after. This is enough. This is more than enough. This is everything. Let your eyes be closed now if they aren't already. Let the last tension leave your body, the tension you might not have noticed you were still holding, the slight bracing in the chest, the subtle readiness for something to need your attention. You can let that go completely. Nothing needs you right now. Nothing is waiting. The night is patient, and the morning is hours away, and between here and there is only rest, only the slow and healing passage of darkness, only the gentle work that your body and your mind do when you finally, fully let them. The village sleeps. The mountains stand. The stars move in their slow, ancient circles above the highland and above your window and above every window in the world where someone old enough to deserve this peace is lying down at last and breathing slowly and allowing the night to be what it is. Sufficient, quiet, kind. You have come a long way tonight. Through memory and through the highlands and through the accumulated understanding of all your years. Through the faces of people you've loved, and the feel of hands that shaped you, and the sound of voices that live in you still. Through the recognition of your own wisdom, and your own endurance, and your own deep, unquestionable worthiness of this rest. You've journeyed through the quiet dark, and found it full rather than empty. Found it warm rather than cold. Found it inhabited by everything that matters. By everyone who has ever loved you, by every version of yourself that has ever lain down, just like this, and hoped for morning. Morning will come, it always has, and you will rise into it carrying everything that tonight has given you, the peace of the highlands, the steadiness of the mountains, the understanding that your life has been and continues to be exactly what it needed to be. But that is tomorrow. Tonight, there is only this. Only the breath, only the dark, only the warmth around your body and the quiet inside the room and the vast and patient night holding everything in its arms without asking anything in return. The fires die down, the stories settle, and the world grows still. Let your thoughts drift away like embers on the wind. Good night. You've journeyed far through time tonight. Now it's time to journey into dreams. Close your eyes, breathe, and let sleep find you.